Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 35 of the ESG Show. They say that one of the first signs of getting old is when you think policemen are getting younger every year. Well, what happens if you think CEOs are getting younger every year? I can't believe how young the CEOs were in that animation we ran just now. It's really making me feel old. Anyhow, today we are talking about ESG and the CEO. And a bit of a question for you, really. What's the CEO to do? The EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive entered into force on January the 6th this year. And some countries are holding it with, let's say, rigor. In France, for example, CEOs who do not completely follow the rules could go to jail. According to an article, can't actually see here what publication it's in, but according to the directive, corporate directives may be compelled to pay fines of up to 75,000 euros and face imprisonment for up to 5 years if they fail to provide essential information for external auditors to validate their CSRD compliant reports, or if they obstruct the auditor's work. Puzzlingly, assuming the article that I'm citing is correct, it says that if they don't appoint an auditor, the fine and the jail sentence is potentially less. I don't quite understand how that could be, but anyway, there you go. That's the way it is. And yet, I have a funny feeling that if you were to talk, if Governor Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, was to be in his sort of deepest fantasies, I'd imagine he'd quite like it if corporate executives went to jail for following ESG principles. So it's a tricky one then, isn't it? What is the key CEO to do? Before we move on and meet today's guests, let me tell you about an important project the ESG Show is involved with. Next month, we're going to be exploring later this month, we're going to be exploring the intersection of ESG and cybersecurity in some depth. On May the 15th, we are doing a show on the topic, and on May the 23rd, we're collaborating with the organisers of an in-person event, an event called Through the Cyber Lens. The event is on May the 23rd. It's held in Plymouth, Cornwall, on the southwest of England. Let me call up the dates and timing. But if you can't make it, no need to cry, because we will also be broadcasting it live over LinkedIn as part of the ESG Show. The ESG Through a Lens is the first of its kind event that seeks to understand the deep-rooted connections between ESG and an organization's cyber posture, its company culture around cyber security. With digital so integral to achieving almost all ESG goals, it's critical to understand how these two things connect. As it happens, in the UK, the government is in the final phases of consultation around a new directive for cyber governance, which will make it even more clear that company directors are as responsible for their company's cyber posture as they are its fiduciary duties. And the UK government lead for this would be one of the speakers at the event. And the event is split into 3 sessions, so you can focus on the areas that you need most help understanding, with each building on the other with talks and panels. The first session will take you through the fundamental connection points between ESG and cyber. The second delves into the governments, and the third session will make explicit connections between cyber and ESG to provide audience insights to ideas and thoughts of how to strengthen their ESG approaches to cyber. So anyhow, that's that. I think we need to push on and meet today's guests. And on the show today is Tanya. Hello, Tanya. How are you today?
Hi, Michael. Great to be here. Great to meet the audience.
Great. Well, great to have you. Tanya's been on the show before. When we discovered that Tanya's corporate policy is to only work with companies beginning with a U. Is that right?
A few others that start with different letters.
So Tanya Popper, if I pronounce that correctly?
Poppo, it's French.
Poppo. I beg your pardon. Poppo. Tanya is the director of Synthesis. Her expertise lies in innovation and sustainability. She has worked with the world's leading corporates, non-profits, government agencies, and academic institutions to design breakthrough innovations to global challenges. Her clients have included and there's a lot of U's coming up. Her clients have included Unilever, the United Nations, UK government, UCL, and the University of Chicago. She has worked across the globe in Africa, Asia, the US, and UK. Her projects have covered a range of sustainability issues, including urban poverty, energy efficiency, social cohesion, sustainable development, and education. Tanya was also a consultant and advisor to the United Nations. She worked for the UN's largest agency and was at the forefront of their shift to a strategic focus on innovation. She implemented this new approach across 15 countries in the Asia Pacific, overseeing the development of the first ever innovation fund in the region. She was also a lead consultant on the fund, which generated projects which tackle challenges from natural disasters to women's economic empowerment. She's often asked to guest lecture on innovation and sustainability and has delivered sessions at UCL, Warwick Business School, and the University of Chicago. She has recently joined the academic faculty at the University of Exeter, where she teaches the module Tackling Global Challenges, which sounds incredibly amazing. Tanya studied at Cambridge University and King's College London. Her studies have focused on innovating to solve complex global challenges and the use of new emerging technologies to bring about positive social impact. So, Tanya, I'm going to be really mean, and I'm going to ask you to answer a question in about 90 seconds, which probably requires a 10-hour reply, which is you lecture on global challenges, tackling global challenges. How do you do that?
Absolutely. So my expertise really lies in innovation, using innovation to drive sustainability, so to drive social and environmental impact. And so the kind of topics we focus on are everything from developing sustainable supply chains. So of course, focus on things like human rights, but also focus on things like reducing your carbon emissions in your supply chain. But we also focus on things like overconsumption and overproduction. So from food waste to fashion and tech. And we also focus on generally how a business will use their business model as a force for good. So perhaps you're focused on areas from special needs to mental health to poverty and homeless list. So using the resources, the technology, the employees within your business to make an impact in the world. There.
Well, I can't think of anything more relevant to the ESG show than your course. So that's good. So Tanya, so today's theme is ESG and the CEO. And you talk about 3 types of leaders: visionary, action-orientated, and blockbuster. Can you please enlighten me?
Yeah, certainly. So I work across sectors with a range of sustainability leaders and C-suite and CEOs. And what I really saw was that they tend to fall into 3 main categories. So the visionary, the action-orientated, and the blockbuster. So the visionary leaders, those are those leaders who are already positioning their company to be fit for the future. Their companies are focused on, of course, commercial opportunities and driving revenue and growth and profit. But at the same time, they're an entity that drives social impact and environmental impact. Equally, you have action-orientated companies. Those are the ones who are still progressing. They're still getting themselves ready and focused on raising their sustainability credentials. They are keeping abreast of the regulations, and they are tinkering within their business models, within their value chains, and they're looking at how they can enhance their products and services so that, again, they have that dual purpose of driving profit and change. And then you have the blockbuster groups. Many people remember, or certainly it's cited very much in innovation, that the CEO of Blockbuster, when it was brought to his attention that we're moving into a digital age, and he said people will always want to go to the shops to rent videos. And we all know how that turned out. And you do see CEOs burying their heads. They think this is a bit of fad. They're not interested. They are very much a for growth company, and sustainability is not really relevant for them. They don't fully understand the risks, and they don't understand that consumers are really voting with their feet and expecting business to really be driving positive change. So they may produce some colourful reports, but there's not really much going on behind the scenes, and there's certainly no radical change going on within their business models. So that's certainly what I've observed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember I interviewed somebody once about the threats of disruptive technology, and he had 2 pieces of advice. One was, if it's not broken, break it. And the other one is, and you can imagine the guy from Blockbuster saying this, if you're worried about cannibalizing your product, his comment was, cannibalize or be eaten, which I thought was quite a nice turn of phrase.
I mean, certainly we're in the midst of change. And I think if you're not responding to the current change, then it's very possible that you can find yourself in the Blockbuster group.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, so Tanya's going to be back with us shortly. I'm just going to briefly introduce Ellen to you. So Ellen, hello, Ellen. How are you?
I'm well and happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. And Ellen's a returning guest on the show. And remind me whereabouts in the world you are today.
I'm in New York City.
New York City. Okay. And so Ellen, let's call up her profile. I forgot to call up. Guess what? I forgot to call up Tanya's earlier. I'll pull it up again later. So Ellen is a sustainability professional turned CEO. She helps businesses successfully complete their strategic initiatives. And Ellen, I think you're involved doing a podcast on the CEO at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to. It launched yesterday. It's Time to Press Pause, a podcast for CEOs by CEOs. And I have the pleasure of interviewing CEOs of all different types of organizations and sizes of organizations on a time in which they needed to press pause. So not necessarily directly related to ESG, but a time when they understood it was good for them to take a step back, rethink, reevaluate, and move forward, sometimes in the same direction, but with a better strategy, and other times in a slightly different direction. And we have 3 episodes that launched yesterday. This will be weekly, and the stories range from business decisions where an industry started to go down a path that the CEO wasn't really in alignment with, so they pivoted, to really personal changes that redirected their whole life and made them move in a completely different direction professionally as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And what are your experiences with the ESG and CEOs? And let's say that one again, shall we? What are your experiences with ESG and CEOs? And now that you are a CEO, how is your organization addressing ESG?
Yes. So my experience with CEOs and ESG, I am very much in alignment with what Tanya just outlined. Over the last few years, as I've been in ESG now since 2019, what I had been doing was implementing an ESG tool. And what we found is, in many cases, we were very much an arm's length from the CEO, and it became, in some instances, a siloed initiative within the organization. And we really tried to explain the importance of having the CEO on board so that it was a company-wide, not just initiative, but an imperative. It was part of business, not a silo. And those were the conversations we were trying to have with CEOs. Unfortunately, we didn't always get to have the conversations with the CEOs. So again, that's where I said we were kind of an arm's length away from them. And they were basically relying on the sustainability team, which in many cases we found was one person, sometimes up to 3 on the sustainability team. But we really wanted the CEO to be more engaged. And the few times that we did talk directly to a CEO, because there wasn't a sustainability team in place, it was a lot of education rather than here's what we can do for you from this tool. It was here's why you would be considering a tool like this in the first place. And unfortunately, a few of them really came back with, well, I'm not interested in that, or maybe I'll do this just to check the box. So there was definitely, in my experience, unfortunately, a little bit of a disconnect with the CEO and the ESG that was going on in their organization. As a CEO, just launched the Salient Strategist earlier this month. So I'm a small operation, and I really wanted to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And one of the first things I did was I researched green banks, because my personal banking, I will admit, needs to be revised, but I wanted the business banking to start with a bank that was really responsible. And so I went with Amalgamated Bank. With all of the research I did, they were always on the top as far as being a sustainable bank, and it's part of their mission. So making those kinds of decisions as a CEO, the types of organizations I'm going to partner with, spend money with, is going to be important that they are sustainable. And also a lot of my services I will be doing remotely. So really reducing any kind of travel. Those are the first few steps I've taken.
Okay, thanks for that, Ellen. It's an interesting tip about the bank there. And also on the show today is Cal. Hello, Cal. So, Cal, you're on mute.
Making sure I'm unmuted. How are you today, Michael?
Very well, thank you. And whereabouts in the world are you today?
I am in Atlanta, in Georgia.
Okay.
In the United States.
Okay, yeah, indeed. Well, good to have you here. So, Cal Burlock, is that correct? Yeah.
Burlock,
yes. And CEO of Driven Systems DBA STM Reps, STEM Reps. Cal Burlock is a technology executive, scientist, and educator with years of expertise in medical, diagnostic, cancer, genomics, proteomics.
Yes.
K-12, adult education, logistics, IT, telecommunications, and more. Cal has been at the forefront of the tech, education, and commercial revolutions of the last 30 years. So many exciting advances spawned by the internet and information transfer, the mapping of the human genome, gene editing, distance learning techniques, lean systems, and several other game-changing technologies have demanded a new approach to working and creating products for worldwide markets. Our dream is to, he says, is to impart the world of knowledge and expertise to others and promote integrity, innovation, investigation, and ingenuity to widespread market. That's all sounds incredibly interesting. I like the fact that you're into genomics as well. That's an area that's advanced phenomenally quickly, I think. Can you tell me just a little bit more about STEM Reps?
Yes, absolutely.
Said it correctly.
So we intend to cast the widest and the deepest net to find the next generation of STEM professionals. We train and employ technical sales representatives across several different domains. Right now, our strong suit is biotech and healthcare tech. Different from a college in the sense that we actually cast a wider net than those who might pursue technical school by creating a gig worker platform where you're able to tap in via the internet, get trained, certify, and then actually represent technical products for us in the field. So as we grow, we will be that marketplace between the innovative manufacturer, the end user, and this middleware sales force that we've created. So,
okay, thanks for that. And the other day, Cal, you and I, we had a conversation about CRISPR-Cas9, which I think is an incredibly important technology. I think it could be up there. You remember there was that time when one of our distant ancestors said, "Oh, it's dark and cold out there. I wonder what would happen if I rub these two sticks together." And I sometimes think that CRISPR-Cas9 is potentially as significant a development as that. Can you, what's your interest in that, and what's your kind of opinion about that?
Absolutely.
There's dangers with it as well.
Well, I couldn't agree more. You can compare it to the rubbing of the two sticks, and then you might bring it forward to today and compare it to the AI craze and the fear and respect that we give to AI. CRISPR-Cas9 is an extremely powerful technology to be able to edit genes very cleanly, very effectively, and then to have those genes be passed on to the daughter cells in a permanent sense is both exciting and scary, right? Depending on the rules, the governance, as we talk about ESG, it it will come with some fear, right? That people will play with genes in a way that they should not. However, as it relates to healthcare and the kinds of changes that can be made as far as gene therapies, as far as some of the things that you're seeing today with mRNA technology, a lot of that came from CRISPR-Cas9, and which we learned from bacteria, in fact. So it's quite exciting. So we're now I guess we're gonna need a new term to mix CRISPR-Cas9 and AI as far as what AI can actually give to us in creating guide RNAs and things like that. So exciting field, man.
Yeah, no, I think the convergence of AI and CRISPR-Cas9 is pretty amazing. I saw an interview once, and it exists somewhere on YouTube, an interview of Vladimir Putin. And this is quite a few years ago, but a long time before the invasion of Ukraine and everything. And he said that he thought that gene editing was more dangerous than the nuclear bomb, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, in the wrong hands, for sure.
Anyhow, so let me welcome back our guests today. And we're at that stage. Can you, I don't know whether it's you, Cal, can you just go on mute for just a moment?
Yes.
I don't know whether that's you or not. I don't know. The noise has stopped. It maybe it goes through. I don't know. Things that happen when I'm talking, which is a bit worrying. I'll talk as little as possible and let my guests do as much of the talking. Ellen, you saw a media article the other day, which you were keen to talk about KPMG. Let me just call up what it says. KPMG, the majority of US CEOs expect significant returns from sustainability investments within 3 to 5 years. Can you tell us more?
Right. So this is a study or a survey that was conducted by KPMG. And they're basically saying that the time has finally come where ESG is now connected to profitability or revenues. And I think many sustainability professionals over the years, as much as we were hoping that ESG would come to the forefront of business because they wanted to do the right thing, it's really because they're seeing that connection to, hey, if I do the right thing, I'm going to make more money. And I guess that's the premise of being in business. So we used to say at my previous employer at Orion, we want to do well and we want to do good. And so those two really do marry together. And the survey is showing that more CEOs are seeing this. Their investment in ESG is anticipated to bring in more revenue, not immediately, but somewhere between 1 to 3 years, or some of them as far out as 5 years. But it's definitely a motivator. And in my opinion, anything that gets an organization to really focus on ESG is a good thing.
Okay, thank you for that, Ellen. And Tanya, there was a piece that you wanted to talk about ESG and AI over geopolitics. Please, what are your thoughts about AI and ESG?
Generally, it's AI and sustainability are two of the most biggest topics that companies are grappling with right now. And both of them, we actually have no idea where we'll be in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So what you need to do, certainly as a company, is to both look short term and understand how much money and resources and time you can effectively put in to these areas, and how they're actually practically going to make a difference to your business. But also you need to keep abreast of the trends and look at your competitors to understanding how they're using AI and really how they're embedding sustainability to also maintain your competitive edge on a global platform. So it's certainly interesting times. You can see some of the large tech companies really investing a huge amount of money into these areas. One, I guess, if you think of sustainability, it's really compliance and legislation driving some of this behavior, let's say. I do think there are lots of companies who genuinely care. And at the same time, with AI, there's the fear of falling behind. We talked kind of about disruptive technology, and the idea that if you are not driving or developing structures, not upskilling your people, or at least employing the right people and developing the technology within your business, where will you be in 5, 10, 15 years time? Nobody knows. So it's a bit of a race. We're certainly in, the midst of a huge revolutionary change. And I think you've got to ensure that you're, keeping up with the times at the moment. So very interesting article.
Okay, thanks for that, Tanya. And then Cal, you saw a piece, let me call it up, how CEOs and leaders can stand their ground and resist the backlash on diversity, inclusion, and ESG.
Absolutely. Those domains are mentioned and obviously under attack here in the United States. There is no real neutral position on ESG. Either you're moving it forward or you're slowly going backwards or speedily going backwards, depending on which part of the ESG issue you're dealing with or is affecting you. So it is the CEO's, I believe it's the CEO's responsibility to establish that honor code and push for that in their organization. For us, that has meant, and in our early startup, we have a kind of a biblical, if you will, code that we have, an honor code we call the premise promise. And the first demand of that premise promise is that we will only represent very disruptive technology. So it's got to take a very hard left or right to some technical challenge or problem that an industry is facing. And then it's got to be cost positive, but our last value is sustainability. It's got to be good for the planet we all share and for our own personal health. And we will not touch the technology if it does not solve for those three things. So by doing that, I'm making sure that my reps that may be as far flung as, anywhere in the world, maintain sustainability and awareness about the products that we need to provide to our industries. And by doing that, we make sure that it's very primary. The article talks a lot about standing up to the backlash. Here in the United States, there certainly is a backlash. It's kind of like it's an anti-data, anti-intellectual backlash, because as Ellen has shown and Tanya has mentioned as well, the data supports ESG initiatives. It supports forward-thinking CEOs. So I think because the data is on our side, we should stand strong and stand up to bullying politicals like you mentioned Ron DeSantis in Florida, just south of us. So we are definitely in a fight. But ESG, whether or not it's a term that we're using in the modern times, has always been there. I could roll it back 200 years and talk about some of the magnets of capital here in the United States, and ESG was very much a part of what they were doing, even if they were performing badly with it, right? You're either doing good with it or you're doing bad.
There was a Welsh industrialist back in the 1700s called Robert Owen, who was very big on ESG before ESG existed as an acronym, if I remember correctly. And anyway, look, Ellen, we are very, very late for time. Do you mind if we skip that article I was going to discuss with you? But if we've got a little bit of time later, I'll bring it back.
Sure.
A couple of days ago, I spoke to Martin Welsh, who's the CEO of a company called Booth Welsh. And I'm just going to play that interview. And then after that, I'm going to speak to Cal, and we're going to have similar questions. And I think Tanya and Ellen, I'm going to ask you to join that interview because I thought you might like to butt in with some comments of your own. But let me just play the recording from the other day. And it's 7 minutes long. So see you all shortly.
My name is Martin Welsh. I'm CEO of Booth Welsh. Booth Welsh is an engineering services business based in Scotland. We employ around 300 people. And we supply engineering services to a wide variety of industry sectors. We are now management team owned, which I'm very proud of, and very much look towards the future for everything from innovation, sustainability, digitalization, and satisfying our clients' needs as we go forward in this new modern world.
Okay, great. So I would describe Booth Welsh, you're at the sort of the hard end. You're doing engineering, which is quite carbon intensive. Normally that's considered to be carbon intensive. I suppose has sustainability been a particular challenge for you, do you think?
I think sustainability is a challenge for everyone, regardless of what sector you're in. I would say, Michael. I think the materials that we use, perhaps, we use a lot of steel and copper in the installation side of the business, and I suppose that there are sustainability challenges around how much of that we use and reducing waste. I think at the moment it's a very unique situation where you're trying to reduce emissions, you're trying to reduce waste, but you're also improving every business as you do that. So the sustainability challenge and the business challenges are totally aligned, in my opinion, right now. And I think we're seeing clients coming to the table with that too.
Okay, and how is sustainability impacting your business?
I think for Booth Welsh, we see that as an opportunity. Sustainability is certainly an opportunity for us. I mean, when we look at the clients, especially the new clients that we're engaged with now, sustainability is a new conversation we can have with clients. It's allowing us to get into new markets by taking technology we're already using with our established customers. So I see it as a great opportunity to get to discuss common problems with large organizations that we can see day and daily in our business, and equally they have it in theirs. So it's regardless of the sector, regardless of the technology we're using, there is a common theme there around sustainability that gives you a great advantage when you're talking to a new client.
Okay, great, thanks. And sustainability can be viewed as a risk or an opportunity. What are your views about that?
I'd certainly say sustainability is an opportunity for business. As I said, it starts that new conversation with clients. As far as risk is concerned, I think the big risk you would have is if you ignore, if you ignore the tea leaves at the moment. I think everybody should see that the signs are that sustainability is going to be very much a method of measurement by your clients and your industry sector, and you need to be on board now to prepare yourself for what's coming in the future. So I think by embracing that, it brings tremendous opportunity.
Have you had to change your leadership style in order to incorporate sustainable practices into your business?
I wouldn't say I've had to change my leadership style too much. We have changed how we engage with our staff. So one thing that we did bring in was the 5 Ps of purpose. So when we're talking to our staff now about how they can help us engage with the whole business strategy, we look at the 5 Ps. The 5 Ps are people, planet, profit, place, and product. So when we look at the planet section of that, then our staff have an opportunity to come up with incentives, to come up with suggestions that we can put into the business to help us drive forward. And that's just a way that I've opened that channel up. But we've always been engaged with our staff and listened to our staff. I think the idea that the best ideas come from the boardroom is long gone. So you need to listen to your staff.
Is there a particular leadership style which is more suited to present times, do you think? I suppose it's a question about the old-fashioned way. It was the boss would say, "This is the way it's done. Do it my way, or get out," kind of thing. Is there a different approach now, do you think?
I think there is a different approach there for the new leaders. The old autocratic way of, from the top down, that triangle idea where the CEO or the managing director tells everybody how it is. Those days I think have gone. I think you would lose a lot of staff if you managed a business the way businesses were perhaps managed 15, 20 years ago. And that leadership style is certainly something that's required going forward with sustainability and the challenges that we face today. I mean, a good example, we've got our team away day coming up next month, and that day we'll have about 30 to 40, I think it's about 35 people will be in the room, all listening to how the business is performing currently and how they can input to helping us drive the business forward. That idea of small improvements make a big difference. So, I think, if you look back, certainly 10 years ago, that kind of opportunity didn't exist for the staff to get involved, and it wasn't given to them by the leadership. So I think that you go into listening mode and really listen to the staff. I think that helps a lot.
And what are the challenges that you have faced in embedding sustainability into your business?
The challenges we would have faced in the early stages, I suppose, is letting everybody realise how important it is. In the early days of the sustainability challenge, I don't think that people took it too seriously. They didn't see it as an opportunity. They certainly seen it more as something else they had to do. They didn't see it as a necessity. So the challenge, I think, was around communication. We've got a really good communications team here that help us put that message strongly across to the staff. And I think that was the biggest challenge that we've seen.
Research suggests that staff want to be a part of a purpose-driven organisation, particularly younger employees. Have you found this to be the case?
Yes, I would say that purpose-driven businesses right now will attract more staff than those that haven't approached it in that manner. I think our purpose, through collaboration, we engineer a better future. It's certainly helped us with both staff and our clients. And then when we add the additional work that we've been doing in sustainability and the marketing we've been doing around that, really walking the walk, not just talking the talk. I think that is helping us attract new people. The conversations we're having with employees now are entirely different than they would have been even 5 years ago, where the first question was, what's the salary? The questions now are entirely different, and they're more around, the sectors we work in, our sustainability approach, work-life balance, flexibility, and how they can deliver their job. I think these conversations are now certainly at the top of the pile when it comes to talking to new staff and issues, especially younger staff.
And what do you think the future holds for sustainability and business?
I think in the future, sustainability is going to be mentioned in the same breath as a lot of other compliance issues that we have when tendering or working with clients. Sustainability is probably going to be towards the top of the pile at the moment when we come to being scored when we're submitting any tenders. So I think that's only going to continue. So now's the time to get on board, I would say, to make sure that you are aligned, because it's certainly something that's going to be very, very important for every business in every sector.
Okay, I hope you found that useful. We will be hearing a little bit more from Martin later on in the show. We've had a few questions, and I thought now might be a good time to deal with them. So Miranda got the ball rolling. What does doing good and doing well look like as it relates to STEM education? That's a question for you, Cal. And then we had a follow-up question from Kelly Milburn. She said, part increased representation in STEM careers feels like it is doing good and doing well. It will increase diversity of thought, creativity, and innovation in STEM-related industries, consequently better performance in all facets of ESG. Anything to add to that, Cal?
Yeah, I would say they both bring up a question and a great answer from Kelly. Representation matters greatly in STEM. STEM touches all of our lives, and that's why we chose sustainability as part of our core value. We also are getting heavily into clean energy, which energy is the number one of top 10 world problems. And then if you look at number 1 through 5, it's really a energy basis where we're talking about food, water, and those kinds of things. So to be able to take technology out that actually solves for some of these challenges, that is the heart of doing good and doing well. And, we defend that greatly. I'll give you an example of a colleague. Gary Cooper owns a company called Reaply in Chicago, and they are in the reuse economy, right? So much of the bad energy and unsustainable practices come through the building industry. Well, they basically will take down buildings, all the windows, all the desks, all the pieces in it, and then they resell it elsewhere. And so it's a reuse economy. And so you're not, that depresses the amount of building that you have to, do, and all that energy, that bad energy usage in creating those building materials. So sustainability, involves themes of adaptability and resilience to what we're already seeing as the effects of climate change. So there's a slew of technologies that you can support there that actually brings us forward as a society, really.
Okay, thank you for that. I can't tell you how much pleasure it brings me when I notice that we've got viewers from all over the world. Greetings from Sudan. Greetings to you as well. Great to have you here. We've had another question, and I've got a glib answer to this, but I'm also going to hand over to Tanya on this one, about wondering how AI and ESG can join forces. Maybe might be worth exploring this a bit further. If companies had AI tools that support their ESG agenda, could be a fruitful way of bringing these two agendas together. I wonder if Tanya or any of the other speakers have come across any examples of this. How our microphones seem to be allergic to each other. I'm going to ask you to go on mute, and I'm going to go on mute as well. But over to you, Tanya.
First, I'm going to say hi to Tony Riley for that question. I know Tony Riley very well, so thank you for that question. So they are already joining forces across a range of sectors. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. So, if, for example, with fashion, they have introduced, well, the EU has introduced digital passports, where we have to be able to track products so that we are reusing them and we are extending their life, so providing the customer with the opportunity to repair them or fix them. So this is avoiding products being sent to landfill. So AI will play a major role in these digital passports. So obviously they'll have a QR code, but they'll have data attached to each product. And so there is an example of the way AI will support there, but equally across the whole entire supply chain, measuring carbon emissions, measuring energy usage, water consumption, but also supporting with human rights, tracking labor rights. You know, if you think of the major multinationals, it's now their responsibility to track all of these parameters, all of these data sets across all of the countries that they operate in. This is a huge job that the truth is nobody quite knows how they're going to do this. And AI will play a major role in collating this data, measuring this data, and then allowing companies to devise effective practices which actually lead to action on the ground. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks again, Tony.
I'd like to chime in on this one momentarily. So, Tanya, you really looked at the big picture and how AI can help across topics and industries. It can also help on the individual organization level. Again, those ESG tools, they're evolving every day. And the importance of reporting. A lot of times your ESG information is over here and your reporting is over there. So the ESG tools, at least the ones I'm familiar with, are starting to implement AI within the tool to help bring the data that the reporting standards are going to require, easily pull that out of your tool, and even help you create some of the summary information and content and context around that information, making the creation of those reports a little easier. Of course, you always want to edit AI content, but having that starting place and not having to start from scratch and pulling the right information can really help with getting those reports out and getting them out accurately.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that. We've also got a link, and Langstone provided a link for you there, Tony. And incidentally, we did discuss the role of technology and AI with ESG last week, and we discussed that in quite a lot of depth. You might want to have a look at last week's episode. I'm fairly sure we touched on a similar theme, certainly on the topic of measuring ESG and using AI in that theme. We've also had a good question from Martin. The key challenges of ESG and CEOs, in particular in the US, is that it is understood as a binary, widely as a compliance question, whilst it is actually a strategic, non-binary management and performance question. Any thoughts on that one?
I love that. I just want to say one of the things I've been giving some thought to is in the United States, people are always decrying regulation, right? And in another world, or the word, or the best use of the word regulation is really high standards, right? I mean, if I want to send my kid to a great school, I expect them to have high standards, and people who want to complain about that will call those regulations. So politically, you have that word buzzing around, and I want to challenge everyone who uses it to tell me, you know, whether or not it's really high standards that you're complaining about, because we do want high standards. And so that's why, you know, ESG matters, to be forward thinking, is to maintain high standards. So when I agree with, I think it's Martin who said it's non-binary and it's really about performance. It's really about, it's really about innovating and about, doing the most human thing, which is our ability to use intelligence and adapt to our environment and to improve our environment. It's the only thing that separates us from the animals, right? We can actually think about something, make a plan, choose a standard, and then ascribe to that standard. And so it is the best use of your human ability.
I think it also goes to responsible business, right? There are financial standards and financial regulations so that you're proving you are doing business responsibly. And unfortunately, in the US, we haven't gotten those regulations yet. And we did speak to customers years ago that said, well, when the government makes me do it, that's when I'll do it. But it really comes down, Cal, as you said, to performance and high standard. But it also comes down to responsibility. Are you, doing your business in a responsible way? That's not just environment, it's social and governance too.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm so sorry, Cal. Could I actually go on mute again? I really don't know if it's coming from you or not, but Christopher, and then click on mute if you've got anything to say. Christopher Barlock said, a way forward is to look at ways to make people less reliant on the grid and find ways to create localized energy that could supplement the grid, which incidentally, I always think is one of the reasons why I think that emerging markets have a huge opportunity at the moment, because the problem of connectivity to the grid has always been a factor that has held back countries, especially particularly poor countries, very large poor countries. And all of a sudden, connectivity to the grid isn't so important at the moment. I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that, but please speak if you have. Alan Langstone also agrees. He thinks too much ESG is a strategic opportunity to understand and to help your business make better decisions. Gosh, we've got a lot of comments coming through. Benjamin Ngeo, I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, said, feels nice to join the talk for the first time. Could you address how blockchain technology could be leveraged in accurately measuring GHG emissions? Well, nice to have you here, Benjamin. Anyone got any thoughts on blockchain?
I was going to say to the previous comment, if I may, and just kind of harkening back to the Booth Welsh interview as well, he talked about the opportunity and risk. Driven systems, we run STEM reps, which we've been talking about today, but we also run a social political advanced system. People are empowered by systems, access, and due process. So we've created kind of like a report card for corporations and officials, elected officials, where we grade them across a rubric of goals. And in doing so, we address that social component. The risk is that maybe some of my business partners might not like the fact that I'm trying to assist with social political advance in the United States for Black people, of which I am a proud member. And so I always kind of, people know me less for that second system. One of our board members who lives in the UK manages a large private equity firm there, but he also owns London Common Kitchen, I think it's the name of it. Yeah. And he feeds 20,000 people a week. I hear it takes 2 years to get onto the King's calendar. He met the King in 3 weeks because he was feeding 20,000 people, London Community Kitchen. He was feeding 20,000 people a week. In a sustainable fashion. And so he's always encouraged me to push into that social part too. Don't just, work in STEM and technology and not address the social political advance that needs to occur as well. So a little bit of a risk, because I'm, wondering, will suppliers, will colleagues, have some kind of strange problem with, an agenda also that includes Black social political advance. But I know it's needed. I know it. I see it in my family and friend network. I know it's needed.
Okay, thanks for that. Anyone to add to those comments, or anyone with any thoughts about blockchain?
So just to respond to the original question that Alan Langston talked about, I think there are huge commercial opportunities that Martin from Booth Wealth equally touched on. He talked about this as a new conversation. He said his clients are responding to this, his employees are responding to this. This is the point that many businesses are missing out on. And going back to the visionary leaders that I spoke about, we are moving into a new world where we have to address these issues, and consumers are voting with their feet. I've mentioned before, 96% of consumers, when interviewed, said they expect SDGs to be embedded into your business model, and only 45% of businesses are doing this. This gap means there's a space to innovate and an opportunity for you to develop new products and services, which are both driving profit and growth and driving sustainable impact at the same time. So if you don't understand the commercial opportunities that embedding sustainability can offer, then you risk finding yourself very much at the back of the line. So that addresses the commercial opportunities. I know we're short of time, so I don't know whether you want me to stop there, Michael.
Well, I think we need to push on, really. We've had a question about AI. AI is accelerating exponential growth in the data economy. Sustainability needs data, but data needs to be sustainable. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a little bit of a deviation from the theme today. We've covered this in the past. I mean, I believe that the server farms, increasingly, we're going to see server farms, or the cloud, or the computer, the technology behind the cloud, which I suppose is server farms, where a lot of the AI processing is done, are going to be located in locations that are particularly appropriate for renewables, places like Iceland, for example, or maybe we'll have server farms in orbit around the planet. I don't know, but
I see this as being relevant to the CEO because it's just one more thing they have to consider. Certainly, as we've come out of the pandemic and really are starting to roll back into business as usual, whatever that looks like today, the top issues are, as we've discussed, the economy, but also ESG and AI. And CEOs need to address all of that, but understanding that AI has an effect on ESG, not just in the ways we discussed helping it, but in the fact that AI has to be sustainable. That's another conversation that needs to be had, and the CEO needs to understand that all of their business decisions, not just the ESG ones, affect their sustainability and their social and governance.
Okay, thanks for that. Christopher Bullock makes the comment that he thinks laws in the UK are absurd. I don't think I would disagree with that. And we've had a response from Dan Harrison on the question of blockchain. Is blockchain to track carbon credits or source material so it can't be double counted? Here's a good example. So there's a link there. So we're running so fantastically over at the moment. Cal, I'm supposed to be having a chat with you. What I'm going to have to do is rush through it quite quickly. But I would like to bring Tanya and Ellen in if you want to add anything at any stage. But Cal, can you just tell me, how is sustainability currently impacting your business?
So it provides a lot of opportunity to represent products, right? There are a host of products that are coming up under the title of sustainability, adaptability, resiliency. We're already seeing climate change. I know Mr. Booth spoke of, kind of preparing sustainable initiatives for the future generation. He's certainly correct in that, but we're already seeing billions of dollars of damage that we're looking at, like monthly now in the United States from storm damage. And so climate change is already upon us. We're already seeing, more biological threats that are creeping north, out of tropical regions because of the warming earth and more carbon and so forth. So how do we adjust to those things? There are a slew of products that are good and that need to make mainstream. So we see ourselves as reps, as kind of the vanguard force to expose different products in these different lanes that actually will help people overcome those challenges and make us more sustainable. So definitely from a product standpoint, and then from an advocacy standpoint, because we cast the wide and deep net, we're able to advocate and teach things that other folks, don't literally, usually talk about or know. So sustainability is very near and dear to our heart, always will be.
Okay, thank you for that. And have you had to change your leadership style or practices in order to incorporate sustainable practices into your work business?
I'm sorry. Was that question for me?
I'm so sorry, Cal. Have you had to change your leadership style or practices in order to incorporate sustainable practices into your work business?
So being that we're fairly small, I have the benefit of being able to kind of call forth, what we're going to be about and define our vision and stick to that, being that we're small. And I think sustainability has to, your responsibility for sustainability depends on the size of your company, right? There are different levels, CEOs. If you have a lot of customers, you have a lot of product, you leverage a large market, you have a large responsibility for sustainable, initiatives. Mine are related more to our vision and our product set that we choose. Once I've got employees, a large amount, then I'll have employees, resource groups and things like that help drive that agenda. So absolutely, there's opportunity to grow with it.
Okay, thank you. And is there a particular leadership style which is more suited to the present times, do you think?
I'm sorry, the first part of your question I missed, Michael. I'm sorry.
It's my fault. Is there a particular leadership style which is more suited to the present times, do you think?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think a data-driven leader who relies on the truth of data is the best way to go. That's the best way to serve and to lead. Let the data lead us, right? Absent of data, you just have creativity. I take it back to, primary school. There were subjects like math and science that had very objective answers. And then, you had the teacher who said, tell me what you did this weekend in a creative song. And those are two different thought patterns. And those primary children grow up and become adults. And we need both our creativity and our objectivity. But I think an objective leader that lets the data lead and then uses creative fashion to get the message out is the kind of leader that you need.
Okay, I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, sure.
I think you need transparency and collaboration as well. And I agree. I mean, data has been the staple to the majority of my career, and their data is important to decision making. But I think from a leadership style, making the decisions based on data is important, but communicating to the team, there needs to be transparency. Hey, we're doing okay, but we need to do better. Or we had a target and we missed it, and here's what we need to do in order to get back on track. Or please give us ideas on how to get back on track. So I think the leadership style across the board, not exclusively for ESG, needs to be a little more collaborative.
Okay. I'm going to throw one out to all of you. Tips for the CEO. So Cal, Tanya, Ellen, have you got any tips?
So I'm happy to go first here. Working with a range of CEOs across the sectors, the ones that I can see are really profiting right now, or at least being more successful when it comes to sustainability, are those very clear about setting a tone across an organization. So they're very clear that this is how we plan to drive our growth and revenue models, and that we are a commercial entity. Nothing has changed here. But they're also very clear that they care. And when I speak to their employees, the employees are very clear about the values. This is who we are. And these are the subjects, be it, that they're very clear about how they want their supply chains to look, how they want to engage with their suppliers, how they want their consumers to feel, and equally their consumers are responding to that. I think what always amazes me that people tend to forget is the culture that you set is often felt right at the bottom down to your employees and crucially to your consumers. So effective leadership effectively drives your bottom line.
Okay.
I would say that don't look at it as a siloed initiative. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. That needs to be part of every conversation that happens at the CEO level, whether it's with the employees or it's with the board or it's with the other C-suite. every decision, every conversation, ESG has to be an element. How is it affecting the environment? How is this going to affect our community, the way we treat our employees, our culture, to Tanya's point, and our governance? How are we going to manage this? So it's not its own initiative. It's not a silo. It's just part of business.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. I completely co-sign what the other two guests said. Being collaborative, bringing in stakeholders from the community and from other expertise that you may not have in-house. That's the kind of leader, you should be, like, transparency with the data, and then collaborate, involving others.
Okay, I also asked this question to Martin. I'm just going to quickly run the video. It's 45 seconds.
I think my advice would be, I mean, we were maybe a bit fortunate, Michael, in that we are a measurement company. So our ability to measure our carbon usage, and it took us a while to do it, to be honest. But once we did that, you can't measure, you can't monitor what you haven't measured. So you need to do the measurement piece first. So by first of all looking at our own business and looking at where we were using carbon, and then starting to look at where we can improve that made a big difference. That a couple of projects that we did in-house that had a big impact in the business were because we could measure. So I think measure and then monitor, and then look at how your own business is performing, and then take those same learnings to your clients. There is an opportunity there.
Okay, now, is the Chief Sustainability Officer the future CEO, do you think? So, I mean, often in the past, the CFO becomes the CEO. Do you think there's a route for sustainability officers? Anyone got any thoughts on that?
I'll say sustainability being just, maybe part of ESG could be the next CEO. But it could be someone who has the sustainability piece and the social and governance expertise as well. So definitely sustainability seems to be kind of the biggest subject when you bring up ESG, but social and governance are certainly there as well, and is equally as important. I think what Mr. Welsh says there is the rubber meeting the road. You can't monitor something that you can't measure. So you have to set real KPIs, real key performance indicators along ESG, and have them well thought out. And to implement them, that's the way it happens. People are empowered by systems, access, and due process. So you've got to put that into place. And that's literally where the rubber meets the road.
Okay. Anyone got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it really echoes what Cal and Ellen have said. I think, will the CSO become the CEO? I don't quite think so. They're extremely siloed right now. If you read all the reports across multinationals, CSO are just desperately trying to get a conversation, just desperately trying to sit within that C-suite. So I think CSOs will be delighted just to sit alongside and have the same kind of prestige as a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, as a CFO, as a finance officer, for them to have the same gravitas and be taken as seriously, and to be embedded and kind of be a part of the actual business model, be seen as a driver for the whole company's performance. I think they'll just be pleased to have a seat at the table right now.
I agree with Tanya. I don't see the CSO becoming the CEO anytime soon. I think the role of CSO needs to mature. To Tanya's point, it's really focused right now. And as it becomes more involved with the business itself, as we were just talking, the CEO needs to be including ESG in all the decisions. If that's the case, then the CSO could be part of that decision making as well. So as that role matures and gets more involved across the board of a business, then maybe down the line, that might be an opportunity to grow into a CEO.
Okay. I guess going to ask you one more question, unless there's anything else you want to talk about. I remember a company I used to work for, the CEO once told me, he said that people think that I'm all strategic and I've got a plan, and that we, and then we have board meetings, and the investors want to know how we doing and how we following with our strategy. But he said the reality is, once the board meeting was over, I just went back to the business, and it felt more like being a racing driver. You know, you having to make quick decisions all the time and deal with this and deal with that, and the strategy is there at the back of your mind, I suppose, but it is very much almost firefighting, I suppose. Given the realities of what it's like to be a CEO, and ESG is really a long-term thing, you know, long-term ESG companies with a long-term vision, yes, ESG. But how does a CEO grapple with that, the short-term challenges of daily life? Any thoughts about that?
I think
So
it's both short. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tanya.
Yeah, so I think a good CEO actually has a focus on the short term. So they need to know what's coming up this quarter, you know, both financially and any other kind of practices in the business. But equally, they have to have a grasp of the long term. So we spoke about that earlier. You have to look at the trends that are coming in, from AI to sustainability and the general kind of revolution. As I think we were talking about that the other day, we have something like between 50 and 60 countries going to the election this year. You know, we will have a completely different geopolitical landscape in 2025, plus the regulation that comes in. If you're focused on sustainability, we know that for the first time in history, we will have companies publicly disclosing their ESG data alongside their financial performance. So if you are a CEO that is just focused on short term, just even focused on this year, you run a huge risk of being fined, of being hit with your data being public and it having a massive impact on your bottom line, having a massive impact on the way your consumers portray you. You could, you know, they could find issues within your data or issue within your practices. That means suppliers start to pull out from working with you. So we're not in a time when you can have a short-term vision. So to me, a good CEO will have a very clear short-term focus, but have an extremely good long-term focus. And that's about having a team around you as well who can support you with both.
Yeah, to go on what Tanya just ended in, I think the responsibilities of a CEO are great, but they can't do everything. And those CEOs that find themselves underwater, they need to find time to press pause. And they also need to understand how to delegate to their teams. That's, you know, my services are all around that, but it really needs to enable them to prioritize. And so when they're coming out of these board meetings or any other strategic meeting, they need to have the bandwidth, the time, and the space to prioritize and make sure they're focusing on just those things that a CEO can focus on, and understand that they need to be able to trust and delegate to the team those other things that other people in their organization can do.
I can improve on what the other two guests have said. They're perfectly right. I'll just say that there are a range of both short-term and long-term goals that a CEO must manage and must press through his or her organization. And this is just like that. For us, ESG means today I need to be able to provide a product that to my customer. That falls well within, you know, short-term goals of driving revenue, that I've got to provide a sustainable product or model or some service that we're providing to a customer. Maybe long term, we want to be in a position to influence this goal, right? So both are there every day at the same time. I've got to focus on the hand-to-mouth issues as well as put myself in a position to benefit in the future and to benefit my community in the future.
Okay, thanks for that. I think we need to draw to a close now. What I'm going to ask you to do is give a quick sum up of your thoughts. I'm going to quickly play a video from Martin, who's doing precisely that. So that will give you 45 seconds to think about what you're going to say. So let me play this video, and then I'll come to each of you one at a time, and then we'll be saying goodbye.
I think one thing I'm very conscious of at my age is that we're not necessarily going to be the ones that have to deliver on the promises we're making today. And I think that is a bit of an issue for the world, because the people are going to have to fight the bigger challenges as we get, you know, we can do a lot of the easy stuff just now. You know, we have done good work. We've reduced our gas usage by 80% by looking at how we've been heating the building, and that is going to be really significant, not only for our emissions, but also for our costs. That campaign was run by people under 25 within the business. So the fuel change team really made a big difference by giving them a quick steer in the early stages and allowing them to have their voice. They made a big difference in a short period of time. And I think that enthusiasm comes from the fact that they're the ones that are going to have to live through the climate changes that we've given them. So I think that's one thing that I'm very conscious of, and therefore my job, as I see it, is to set them up for the future, to make sure we are putting it at the front, and to make sure that there is no trade-off. Let them see that there's big business opportunity, as well as an improvement to the environment and the climate.
All right, and I thought I'd give you all 45 seconds each. How about that? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go. I would just say we're living in a time of unprecedented kind of change, and we're going through a massive, massive transition globally. Equally, it's an exciting time for a CEO. Mark Carney spoke quite impactfully about bringing the humanity back to business. And it's a massive opportunity for a business to drive both growth, revenue, and profit. And so seek out those commercial opportunities. And obviously, from my background, I would talk about innovating within your products and services, but at the same time, drive a significant positive social and environmental impact. So my hope is that CEOs don't see sustainability as just about compliance or just about risk and burden, but they actually see it as a fantastic, exciting opportunity to drive change.
Okay, thanks. That's Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England. I think he said lots of...
Absolutely, and his text of values is a very exciting read.
All right. Cal, do you want to have a go?
Sure thing. So STEMREPS hopes to again cast the widest net, because the population needs actionable intelligence. That's what we always say is our AI. In fact, we like to spell the movement that STEMREP serves, which is STEM. We just put an H in between the T and the E. We stick humanity in the midst of STEM. When AI is threatening to remove humanity in some ways, and people are fearing, oh, I'm going to lose my job here or there, we focus on the human elements that actually drive and benefit from STEM. And actionable intelligence around ESG, around these goals, is what the CEO should be establishing, or trying to push that culture through their organization. And so love the opportunity, love the work. We're in a brave new world of a lot of misinformation. The old adage that a lie will travel halfway around the world before the truth laces its shoes is applicable here. So truth tellers, the House of Candor matters greatly. So thanks for that.
Candor matters greatly. I like that. Ellen.
I'm going to stick with the fact that it has to be embedded in all of the conversations that a CEO has, but I'm going to go back to Martin Welsh, what he said, and I loved, and I wrote it down. The best ideas coming from the boardroom are gone. That concept of, from top down, it needs to be collaborative. And then just referencing the fact that he said it was the younger employees that had that initiative. So the CEO needs to include ESG in all their conversations, and both directions, with the boardroom and with the employees.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, everybody. Next week, by the way, the theme is navigating the ESG backlash. And we've got two speakers whom I've been trying since the ESG show was launched to get on the show. We've got Alison Taylor, professor at Stern Business School, and Paul Clements Hunt, who in fact came up with the acronym ESG. So that should be a good one. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much, Cal, Tanya, Alan, and Martin, if you're watching in Scotland, and speak to you all again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.